Thank you for joining me today. Today I want to talk about the Great Delusion. And before we can do that, we really need to go back to the prophets and see what Yahweh told us from the beginning. So let's start in Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. And we read, "If a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears among you and announces to you a sign or a wonder, and if the sign or the wonder spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, 'Let us follow other gods, gods you have not known, and let us worship them,' you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. Yahweh your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul." So I'm going to pause there. The person, that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, can tell you something and it can come true. But even if it comes true, if they tell you to follow another god, you're not to listen to them. Yahweh your God is testing you. This is extremely important. Now, this is true with any prophet, including Yeshua. If Yeshua told us something contrary to what the word says here, then we wouldn't have trusted him as Messiah. But he did pass the test. He did pass the test. He told us that not one jot or tittle would be abolished from the law until all was fulfilled. And we were also told that it would be easier for heaven and earth to disappear before one jot or one tittle would pass from the law or fall from the law. And of course we know that heaven and earth has not disappeared, and that will not happen until after the millennium. As far as the first heaven and first earth, there will not be a new heaven and a new earth until after the millennial kingdom on earth is done. Okay, so let's pick up. We see that Yahweh your God is testing you, and he does this to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. It is Yahweh your God you must follow, and him you must revere. How do we do that? Keep his commands and obey him. Serve him and hold fast to him. That prophet or dreamer must be put to death for inciting rebellion against Yahweh your God, who brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. That prophet or dreamer tried to turn you from the way of Yahweh your God and commanded you, That prophet or dreamer tried to turn you from the way Yahweh your God commanded you to follow. You must purge the evil from among you. Let's do that. Okay. So, we see here that we are supposed to continue in the way that Yahweh, our God, commanded us. Now, let's go over to 2 Thessalonians and read what Paul said. And this is in the second letter of Thessalonians, chapter 2. And we're going to read verses 1 through 12. "Now we request you, brethren, with regard to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and our gathering to him, that you not be quickly shaken from your composure, or be disturbed either by a spirit or a message or a letter as if from us, to the effect that the day of the Lord has come." Notice here that our gathering to him and his coming are one event. It's called the day of the Lord. So regarding the coming of our Lord Jesus and our gathering to him, it's one day. The day of the Lord. And we're not supposed to believe it's come. "Let no one deceive you in any way, for it," meaning that day of the Lord when we're gathered to him, that's just talked about, "it will not come unless the apostasy comes first." The apostasy is the falling away, and that is talked about in Daniel. Paul is just talking about what Daniel talks about in this whole chapter. If you go back to Daniel, you'll find that the apostasy, or that falling away, is actually a judgment at a particular point in time. We are not during the great falling away yet. Yes, there's falling away, but there's a point in time where there will be a great falling away. It's talked about in Daniel, and it's a punishment for lawlessness, for transgression. But let's continue here. So that day of the Lord will not come unless the apostasy comes first and the man of lawlessness is revealed. Now this is really interesting, because if you remember back in Deuteronomy, we're told to continue in the way of the Lord, continue in the way of Yahweh. And here we're reading about a man of lawlessness who obviously does not follow the law of Yahweh. So the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, or of Yahweh, the only real true God, displaying himself as being God. Do you not remember that while I was still with you, I was telling you these things? And you know what restrains him now, so that in his time he will be revealed. So in his time, not before that. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way. Then that lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will slay with the breath of his mouth and bring to an end by the appearance of his coming. So right there we know what destroys the man of lawlessness. It's the appearance of Christ. Clearly, Yeshua's appearance cannot be prior to the Antichrist coming, because his coming is what destroys the Antichrist. The Antichrist has to be able to rule and reign for the 1260 days that it's been declared in Daniel. So his mouth, he will slay him with the breath of his mouth and bring to an end by the appearance of his coming. That is the one whose coming is in accord with the activity of Satan. So we've been talking about the Antichrist. It says, this is the one whose coming is in accord with the activity of Satan, with all power, signs, and false wonders, and with all the deception of wickedness for those who perish. So this Antichrist, or this false prophet, will have powers, signs, false wonders. So they're false wonders. Just like Pharaoh's magicians were able to do some of the same tricks that Moses and Aaron were able to do through the power of Yahweh, but they were false. They were magicians. They weren't. They were getting their power from Satan, and they could only do up to a certain point, and they couldn't duplicate what Yahweh was doing after that. So these are false wonders, and with all deception of wickedness. And why? And who's it for? It's for those who perish. Okay, why did they perish? Because they did not receive the love of the truth so as to be saved. Okay, they perish because they're going to believe this deception, these lying wonders. And why did they believe them? Because they didn't receive the love of the truth so as to be saved. You see, Yeshua said he told us everything ahead of time in order for us to be prepared. He told us everything ahead of time. But if you don't love the truth and you don't believe what he said, then you're going to fall for this deception. And here we're being warned about this deception. For this reason, God will send upon them a deluding influence. So it's because they don't love the truth that he's going to send on them a deluding influence, so that they will believe what is false, in order that they all may be judged, who did not believe the truth, but took pleasure in wickedness. So Yahweh is going to send a delusion. He's sending it so that those who do not love the truth they're going to believe the lie. It's just going to become manifest. He's not going to cause them to do it, but he's sending a delusion, because the very fact that they would believe the delusion just shows that they didn't believe the truth. It's a way of testing. In fact, the Great Tribulation is called the testing, the time of testing, the hour that's going to come upon the whole earth to try men. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick up in part 2, and we're going to look a little bit closer at this delusion. Thank you for joining me.